to join us, it will be good. Okay. Okay, I will have the short introduction and to explain how this session will basically work today, and later after that, yeah, I will explain everything. So officially, hello, welcome of you for your interest, attendance in today's screening and post-screening discussion on the film "The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent," directed by Nebojša Stepčević. This event is a part of the Ethics and Human Artistic Resistance second session. This event series aims to explore the ethics of resistance through film, focusing on World War II and war dissolution of the Yugoslavia. In the highlight of cinema role in contemporary societies, but also foster multidisciplinary dialogue and connects theme of the resistance to current global conflicts. This series also seeks to honor civil courage and nonviolent resistance. The series, the first inaugural series was the film screening of the Diary of Diana B, followed by post-screening discussion in which the film director Dana Budisavljević participated. As a reminder, this film tells the little-known but extraordinary story of the woman who, in her 50s, undertook the massive non-violent rescue effort under the Nazi-aligned Ustaša regime in Croatia during the World War II. So, the present session will feature the screening of the film "The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent," which, in addition to offering a cinematic vision of historical events of 19th war in Bosnia, and explore the artistical and ethical notion of the human courage in challenging and dangerous time of war violence. After the World War II, Europe said never again to wars, but in the 90s, the war broke up Yugoslavia and resulted in more violent genocide and terrible destruction. Today, we are facing the most obvious visible ones, wars as Palestine and Ukraine, but I will repeat the sentence to all people who already knows me. There are currently more than 110 armed conflicts in the world in war. So when we discuss the arts and war, like this film that we will soon watch, we should take our task really clear to explore the significant role of art in society and the evolution of ethical arts and aesthetics, but also relationship of the film with the viewer and the audience. So, my name is Marima Omeragić, and I am postdoctoral fellow at the International Center for Cultural Studies in Taiwan. It's my great privilege to introduce Nebojša Stepčević, the director, and Katarina Prpić, one of the producers of the film. Both of them are currently participating in this session online via Zoom. Thank you for making this screening possible at our school and for taking the time to spend with us and join to this discussion. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
The discussant in today's session is a Professor Emeritus Alan Brossat, and prominent philosopher who recently published a new book on film. And welcome, Professor Brossat. We still hear you. And also, I want to thank to our director and Professor Joyce Liu for taking time to attend. She's here with us in the room. Thank you and welcome. This program, after my introduction, includes the screening of the film, which will be shown exclusively in person in our school, while the post-screening discussion will be open to the participants online. After the film, we will talk with Nebojša and Katarina first about filmmaking process, approximately like 30 minutes. And then I will give the floor to Professor Brossat, who will share his insights and discuss about the reception of the film and his views on film, not longer than 20 minutes. Also, I really appreciate if we can manage this time as I suggest. So, and to all participants online, we will be open to discussion. So stay online. Do not turn off your computers, and we will get back soon after the film screening. And also, I encourage you invite you all to join this conversation and share your thoughts, not just on this film, but also you can ask this director and producer about different things related to film industry, to filmmaking processes, and also on. So I want to note that this discussion session is being recorded, and it will be used for needs of our school and communication channels. Now invite you all to watch the film, and for those online, stay tuned. We will be back in 15 minutes to begin post-screening discussion. We are back again. So we watched the film. Nebojša first, thank you, and Katarina also, and all your crew to these wonderful films. I've been watching it several times to now, and it always leaves really strong impressions, both emotionally and also cognitively. You will find yourself drowned in this story when you watch this intimate ambient of the train, and not only that you can be identified with your documents as the characters are identified in this story, but also with the possibility to be questioned based on your name, ethnics, or religion. And also, but as a viewer, you can and you should recognize the greatest value of this film, which can be pointed out when you see it, and that is the atmosphere of the film and the question of the choice, whether we let a crime happen in front of us, and in that way we become accomplishments, or we will stand up against it if it means risking our own lives. So finally, this film, like in a last section, leaves the basically slap on your cheek, because finally in our faces we are confronted with the silence, and it can be also shame. It provokes the emotion of the shame for those who were silent, and it's, even though it's a easier option to protect themselves and to stay in the comfortable position of not facing a reality in order to help other people. So Nebojša, please tell us what was your first contact with this story generally, because it's a real story, it's a part of the history of the Bosnian wars. And how was your process? How was the moment when you decide to create this story in basically this kind of version of the film, especially short film? So can you describe us the process?
Yes. First, hi to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us and for watching our film and taking time to discuss it with us. And for me, it's always exciting to learn how people from different parts of the world sees the story. That it was very local, and it was, when we were making the film, we were, of course, thinking a little bit about international audience, but we were much more concentrated on the audience from ex-Yugoslavia, and for the local audience, how they will perceive the film. So I'm always amazed when I see that the film travels so far and so wide, and I'm always curious to hear different interpretations. And for me, I was not aware of this specific incident before, and then one of the producers of the film, Daniel Peck, who is not here with us, but he, together with Katarina, is the owner of Anti-Talent production company. He has sent me a journalistic piece that was written by a great Croatian journalist and novelist, Boris Dežulović, and he was writing. It was written on the 20th anniversary, I think, of the crime, and it's told the story of this crime, and it also was discussing why Toma Buzov was largely forgotten. And from that, Daniel made had an idea to make a film based on that story, and we pretty soon realized that the only way that we can make the film is from the perspective, not from the perspective of Toma Buzov, who is the hero, but from the perspective of the person who is not the hero, someone who is sitting next to Toma Buzov, because for several reasons. First, it's very hard to write a role of the hero and to make a film about the hero without being pathetic, or and for me as a scriptwriter, I don't feel that I can understand completely why Toma Buzov did what he did and what was his internal motivation. For me, it was much easier to understand someone who stayed silent in this situation, and I wrote it from the position of the person who is basically a good person. The main character played by Goran Bogdan is someone who is someone who sees the injustice and is appalled by injustice, has an urge to do something when he witnesses the injustice and when he witnesses the violence. But at the very last moment, when he was supposed to stand up and do something, he gets afraid, which is very human, which is something I can understand very well. But also, this is the position that that leads to the consequences that we see in the film and that we see in the world today. And the second reason we chose this position was because I think also that the audience that will watch the film has no right to identify with the hero. I think when I make films, I'm trying to not only to tell the story, but I'm trying to involve the audience in some way to make them reflect on themselves and to question their position and ask themselves what will they do in the position like this. And that's why we not only chose someone who became in the end anti-hero, but also we played the audience a little bit by casting someone who is one of the most famous actors in the area, someone who looks like a hero, someone that Hollywood films would cast in a role of the hero. So most of the people that have watched the film and that who hadn't know anything about the film before, they believed until the last moment that Goran Bogdan is playing Toma Buzov. And even the journalist, when the film just came out last year and went to Cannes, and journalists did not see the film, they believed that they just by reading the casting, they believed that Goran Bogdan will be the hero of the film, which is the trick that we played on the audience. And in order to make them identify with someone they would not necessarily identify with, but which is only right person to identify with, from the comfort of your cinema or from comfort of your home where you watch the film.
Yeah, that's true. But how can you describe us some kind of challenges that you are facing during the creation of the story? Because we are having in mind that it's just 13 minutes, and this is the important. One of the, I think, most important and most retold stories in Bosnia related to wars, because that kind of crime that happened in a train was was really important in the media also, but also regard the process of reconciliation, which is not basically even conceived, but of course with the question of the justice and the crime and everything. How was your perspective to pick some elements of and to make the story or what decision, what's the hard decision for you to make, except this that you mentioned, to take Gordon Bogdan as a main character, which plays this guy who was silenced. And do you have maybe other similar examples?
Well, the most significant challenge for me was ethical, because first we are making a film about something that happened 30 years ago, which is not that long ago, which means that many people who witnessed this crime are still alive. Many people who lost their family members in this crime are still alive. And there is a question first, do I have to write at all to tell the story? Because and the first thing I did before I put one letter on a paper was to locate the family of Tomo Buzov. I found his son, Darko Buzov. I found him online. I wrote him a letter saying that I want to make the film, and I asked him for permission to use his father's name to write a script where his late father will say some sentences that probably he did not say in the real, that I will imagine, and that I will find an actor who is not probably resembling real Tomo Buzov and let him play, which it can be very hurtful for the family members, to watch their people they loved and they knew very well played by someone who is maybe playing it all wrong, not connected to reality. And but luckily, Darko Buzov, he was very generous. He really understood what we want to make, and he gave us his permission. I would not make this film for sure if we did not have his permission. Maybe we will make something inspired by the story, but for sure we would not use Tomo Buzov. And then also I wanted to understand as I come from documentaries. I directed a lot of documentaries before, and I take this very seriously. What is when authenticity in films? Because because of that I knew that people who were there will watch the film and they might get re-traumatized if I don't treat it properly. So I made a large research. I read more than 1,000 pages of different documents, different testimonies, and the script is based on this testimony. So at one point I made a decision that everybody else in the train will be fictional characters, that I will make the fiction except Tomo Buzov, but most of the sentences that are said in the film I found in these transcripts. So I tried to make it as close to reality as possible. And then, of course, we made some creative choices because the film, this is the fiction film, it's not a reconstruction, it's inspired by a real event. But for me, that's the biggest test of the film was when Tomo Buzov's family watched it, and when film I couldn't travel, but when film was shown at the village where many of people who were victims on the train were from, and I got some letters from people who were on the train praising the film, and for me that was very important.
Okay, that's an amazing reaction. I assume. Thank you, Nebojša, for this profound description of the research process and the artistic process and also decision that you had made as a director and also as a screenwriter, because those decisions are really important when you try to make some artistic thing like a film. So right now I would proceed to ask Katarina. I want to know how your collaborations actually came about. And I assume Nebojša was approaching you with idea, or Nebojša already stated something about your colleague director also, your colleague producer also. But what was the thing that brought you in this story? And can you share us the perspective on your role as a producer, and what was the challenges that you encountered in the process of evolving this film from basically with Nebojša and all crew from the beginning, from the script and to the final production?
Thank you for the question, and again, thank you for having us today. So we, as Nebojša mentioned, my partner Daniel and me discovered this story from the newspapers, from a great guy who wrote the story about this heroic act and raised the question about why this guy is forgotten in our area, even though he made a remarkable act that day in Štrpci. And we immediately thought that it would be a great base for a short film, not for a documentary or a feature film, but a short film, because it is short as it is. Everything happens within few minutes, and it is so strong that it doesn't need any pre-story or post-story to analyze the character or to bring them some additional side stories or whatever. So we thought that a 15-minute piece would be perfect. But at that time, we didn't have an idea of who could be the director or a writer. So we just waited a bit with this story in our minds. And then at some point, we watched Nebojša's documentary Srbenka, which we loved, and we thought it was a masterpiece at the time. And after we watched the film, we immediately approached Nebojša with this idea, and luckily he liked it. And then afterwards, everything happened as Nebojša explained. We took some time to realize how we want to do this film. Nebojša took some time to research, and we discussed basically all the steps together, whether we should make a reconstruction of a real event, whether we should do a fiction film in its core, as we decided in the end. When we talk about our role as a producers, we also decided that we would like to make this short film as a high budget short film in our in the sense of our part of the world, which means basically that we applied on our film fund to get the funding from Croatian Audiovisual Center, which we got, and then we applied to as many film funds as we thought could co-fund the film. And it also took some time because it's you need to apply on the deadlines. They have like 1 or 2 deadlines for every country, and it took like 2 years, about 2 years, to get the funding in place. In the end, we ended up as a 4 countries co-production. So it's a co-production between Croatia, Bulgaria, France, and Slovenia, with Slovenia entering the co-production after the film was already shot. When I think about my role and our company's role in the film, we were aware of the importance of the film. We admired Nebojša as the author from the very beginning, and through the process of preparing the film even more. And our approach was to give this film the best we could, and we knew at the time. So apart from only getting the financing in place, which is of course crucial, we also tried to give as much care we could to each and every step, from casting to location scouting, from analyzing the story, from contacting the son of Tomo Buzov, and all the other steps. Cannes was our goal from the beginning, but when I mention Cannes as a goal, honestly, I think every filmmaker in our region has Cannes Film Festival as a goal. So you set up a goal, but you also are always a bit pessimistic, so that you are not very disappointed in the end. So that was also in our case. But honestly, I think that the first edit of this film was already very similar to the final edit that you saw today. So it was very, very clear idea and very, very clear process of getting to the film. And this was the result.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Katarina. I will additionally ask you, what were your? Okay, I have two questions. So, what was the first response in Croatia, especially on this story, regard the historical character of Tomo Buzov, and of course your idea on the film. That is the first thing that I would like to if you can share with us.
Well, first response we got from our film fund because we got funded. So they were the first who read the script and decided to fund to support the film. After we finished the film, I think after Cannes, we screened the film immediately in Zagreb to, I would say, to a lot of people who are not that used to watch short films in cinemas in Croatia, but we decided to show the film to everybody basically in Croatia without any festival strategy, because our goal was to simply show the film to everybody who wanted to see it. So we, after the screening in Zagreb that was open and everybody were invited, we basically gave the film to all the film festivals in Croatia and to all the cinemas that wanted to screen it free of charge. Well, reaction was good because I think the film also is not trying to discuss the nationalities and who is blamed based on his nationality or his faith. So my impression is that, of course, there are always different comments, which is also great. But generally, I can say that the comment was very, very positive on the character and also on the perspective the film shows in the and when we talk about characters, because it talks about a guy who was afraid and who was afraid for his life, and we can only imagine if he also has a family and maybe he has kids, maybe he is also traveling to visit somebody. So it's a kind of a, you as the audience naturally start to feel empathy to this kind of character. So since the perspective of the film is like that, it is very hard to have negative comments, which was also the goal.
Yeah. Thank you. And additionally, I want to also ask you how was your communication, or how did you brought to in co-production story the countries that you mentioned that supported you on this journey?
Yeah, that's what. Well, it's the part of the co-productions for this film is interesting because we started to research which film funds could support short films, because it's the list is very short, and we identified countries that do support short films as a minority co-productions, and we applied to all of them. Honestly, we applied to Denmark, to Bulgaria, to France, Slovenia, and not to Serbia, even though they also have a minority co-production call. We were refused in Denmark. We were refused in Bulgaria. We were shortlisted in France. And then we got accepted in Bulgaria in the second round. Then our French co-producer liked the film project so much that they decided to invest their slate money from CNC, from their National Film Fund, in our film. And that was the moment in which we realized that we could shoot the film and complete it with that money. And then we started to plan the shooting, and then we started casting process, and then we started the location scout and the research how to actually shoot the film in real train. which is also which was not easy, and we were not experienced in that at the moment. And then we applied in Slovenia again, and we got then in the end Bulgaria, France, but the slate funding from the company that decided to support us, and Slovenia. So it was in the end enough money to complete the film. We worked with the authors from all 4 countries. So the DOP is Slovenian, the production designer is Croatian, editor is Croatian, sound recordists and sound designer is from Bulgaria. We had cast members from all countries except Bulgaria because they don't speak our language. So we tried to use the resources from all countries and to incorporate them in our film in the best possible way.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this reflection and for this inside story, concrete with the production of the film. Also, I want to ask you while I'm here to use this moment that you are talking about production. How much is important in the context of the small countries as a Croatia or ex-Yugoslavian countries, which they are facing with the enormous problem and trouble with finding foundings for their films. So especially in Bosnia, we know the other day was one of the news that Jasmil Lažbanić, which is one of the best directors and also producers in Bosnia, could not find the money, the funding for the continuation of for the creation of the second part or film, Quo Vadis Aida. So we are facing that kind of, and also the stories from Serbia, Montenegro, and all other ex-Yugoslavian countries. Okay, we are thinking that is the problem of the small country, but we are also having information that in a world globally, it's difficult to have one producer and one producing company who will manage to pull off the project as a film. So how is this co-production idea of the co-production? It's important for the film and film industry.
Well, there are many aspects of this, and it's important. I think that the project is important, honestly. Maybe it sounds like theoretically and just like in theory, but it's like that. So, and also the moment, of course, because in our countries, in our region, sometimes the state money is not that stable, so you cannot count on the same amount of money and the same budget of the film funds from year to year. But luckily in Croatia, we do have quite good position because we have a very good film fund, which is stable, and we can count on open calls to application every year. We know when the calls are, we know approximately what is the budget, so we can plan. Of course, it is very competitive. It's always very competitive, but when you go to France or to any other bigger country, it's getting even more competitive. That's why I say that the project is most important, and it is very important also to be realistic about a certain project, whether this project can attract financiers and can pass the call on the certain film fund or not. To do that, you need to know film funds, and you need to know the criterias of each film funds, which means that you need to also know the people and to understand the landscape and how many projects are competing to you. With this project particularly, we were very convinced in the strength of it, and for example, France, we were refused in the end on the film fund, but we were shortlisted and we got comments that were really interesting and very, very good. And then sometimes also, if you don't get financed, it is great to hear the comments to understand where you are. And with this knowledge now and with this experience now, of course, it is also making us as producers stronger because we have knowledge of how things are going and what is the reality and what you can get. So, but as I said, story is most important. And if we didn't get this great story and this great nebulous approach to it, we wouldn't attract French co-producer who decided to enter with their own money. And with that money, that it wasn't a large sum, but for this film, it was significant and important step towards the production. So yes, it is important to have a strategy, but it needs to be realistic. Otherwise, you get disappointed in this long process of getting the film funded, and then having a lot of disappointments. This is also not good for the creative team when you still need to enter the shooting. So I think that the realistic approach is important.
Okay, thank you, Katarina. For now, we will get back to you later after we hear the Professor Brasat's talk. So, Professor Brasat, as an intellectual, you were able to recall the events of the war in Yugoslavia in 90s. On the other hand, you are also familiar with my approach to the analysis of our literature and films. Also, it's based on intersection of aesthetics and profound ethical engagement. So, as I previously mentioned, that number of 110 wars and armed conflicts in all continents are a particular really to concern. And I'm very skeptical regards the future due to variation, forms, and manifestation of different threats to humanity that we are facing in every moment. So could you please describe the context in which we receive and watch this film, The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent? And I would be grateful also for your impressions and insights regarding this film. So.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
So, sorry for the no picture performance, which is a bit paradoxical as we are talking about film. But okay, so I would like to repeat actually in my own words what the artist Nebola said in his first intervention. That is, first thing, what I think draws the viewer's attention in this film is, first of all, the fact that the main character is not the hero, but just an ordinary man who boils with anger in the face of violence and injustice, ethnic cleansing at its inception. But finally, instead of rebelling, submits and seems to be ready to bear the yoke of the oppressor, who complies with the law of the strongest, in spite of all his rage, his humiliation, and in spite of the scorching feeling that is losing face in front of the other passengers, but of himself too, and probably first of all. In the film, we hardly see the hero. He appears very shortly as he confronts the oppressor and holds his head upright, does not yield, and calls him, that is the oppressor, the militiaman, an impostor, an outlaw, and then he disappears off screen. Then, actually, it's only through an association of this brief sequence in the film with the in memoriam that comes at the end that we really understand, I mean, we, the viewers, what his tragic fate has been. Shot with all the other passengers who had to be taken into the truck, on the truck, by the militiaman because, of course, of their bad ethnic or religious, or probably both, origin. That is the family name, the given name, as passport to life or death. Even if the film is dedicated to the hero, it is shot from the perspective of the ordinary man, the guy who is about to brim over, to erupt, but who, at the very last moment, bends his head and shirks responsibility. What we viewers share with him is his frightened gaze as the train stops in the middle of nowhere and he asks himself what's happening with the sudden rise of adrenaline. What the film suggests, if I'm not mistaken, is that he is the central character or the central protagonist in this general configuration placed under the sign of the eruption of terror. For he is the average, he is the rule, and the hero is doomed to solitude and a tragic fate, for he can only be the exception. The turning point, or let's say the intersection where the protagonist, the ordinary man, collapses into submissiveness, is quite distinct in the film. It is as the militiaman, looking for the enemy like a bloody hound, asks him about Saint George, if I remember well. That is the date of the saint's day. And this is exactly where the bifurcation happens. Of course, he could raise his head and his voice and retort something like that. Why are you asking such stupid questions? You already have checked my documents. What more do you want? Is it a quiz or what? But instead of that, he surrenders. And this is the end of it. He is defeated. And what comes next is shame and the loss of self-respect. He will live, but he will live in self-contempt to some extent. He knows what makes the difference between the hero, who is not a born hero, just a pensioned low-ranking officer of the Yugoslavian army, or as the train restarts, and for the rest of the journey, the young guy who sits in front of him and who has been saved by the hero reminds him of his defection and defeat just by being there silently as a survivor, while the elderly military man pays the price for having not succumbed to intimidation and for having uttered a distinct no to terror. Not bypassing that we don't know anything about the hero's ethnic or religious background, if I'm not mistaken. He resists as a Yugoslav, a Yugoslav who doesn't accept the fatal new rules of ethnic and religious sorting out and discrimination. He sticks not only to the old rule, but to something like uncorrupted socialist or communist universalism, that is, a human is a human, whatever his or her ethnic, religious origin might be. And now, Merima, you will stop me if I'm too long, right? Now, if we look at things from the angle of narration, this film draws our attention onto the difference between a hero and a protagonist. A protagonist, I insist on that, not just a character. As I said, what the flesh of the film is made of is here more the protagonist than the hero. The protagonist, in this sense, is something more than a character, something essential. He is the nerve, he is the core of the plot. He is what the story is made of, or let's say what makes that what is staged is not just an episode, a tragic or very dire one, of a civil war, that was made of hundreds or thousands of such episodes, all of them as tragic and dire as this one. But the film is more than that. It's a moral and political tale. It's a tale about, I would say, more than courage on the one hand, or cowardice on the opposite, or defection, evasion, but it's rather, I would say, a tale about indecision. That is the lack of this little something you need to utter a loud and distinct no in such a situation. And this is, I think, one of the reasons, if not the main reason, of the success of the film, of this film, beyond the borders of former Yugoslavia. It's a universal tale about what makes that most of people comply with the brutality of the strongest and don't rebel openly against injustice and iniquity. It's a film whose plot is easily transferable onto situations we have to face in the present, Gaza and Palestine, among other things, and where we can notice as well that, let's say, the collective protagonist, I mean, public opinion in the white democratic West, as a rule, rather than lack courage to face crime and injustice, than directly, openly confront them. So this film belongs to a long and rich tradition in the realm of movie making that deals with the confrontation of the ordinary man with the challenges and more than often with the ordeals of modernity, social, political, historical modernity. By definition, the ordinary man leads an ordinary life, which is made of habits and routines. But something might happen that makes him face the uncanny, the unexpected, the extraordinary, eerie situations is not mentally and psychically equipped for facing, as precisely the ordinary man he is. There are plenty of films, not only Hollywood films, movies from everywhere that revolve around this figure. We might call it a topos, which is not only rich, which is quite inexhaustible. War, of course, war, or rather the indistinct threshold that separates peace from war. This is a classic situation where the ordinary man is blown into a growing state of exception. And it's always a moral test, not only an ordeal. This is what the film we have just watched perfectly stages. You know, we can see it in comparison with so many of these films which deal with that issue. In the US, they even have a name for this ordinary man, which is John Doe. John Doe. Okay, and I would like to finish on this. A few days ago,
okay.
Yeah, is it okay? 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
Continue.
A few days ago, a famous French documentary maker, whose name is Marcel Ophuls, passed away. He was the son of an even more famous director, Max Ophuls, from German Jewish origin. Among other films that made Marcel Ophuls famous is a film which is titled in French, Le Chagrin et la Pitié, that is in English, The Sorrow and the Pity, 1969, which is made of interviews with people. It's a documentary film, interviews with people, all kinds of people who lived in Clermont-Ferrand, that is a big city in the central part of France, at the time of the German occupation, which lasted for 4 years during the Second World War. What these interviews show is what prevails in the behaviors of ordinary people in such conditions. which are placed under the sign of exception. What prevails is not the duality or the contrast between heroism on one hand and submission or servility, or even worse, on the other hand, but what I would call the gray zone. The gray zone, that is a complex mixture of anger, frustration, humiliation, discouragement, opportunism, restive spirit, low-level or passive resistance. And it would be quite interesting to have a comparative approach of the short but very dense film we have just seen and Opul's long documentary film, which caused a huge scandal in France because, among other things, it smashed to pieces the patriotic myth of resistance with capital, or what is supposed to have inspired the French people during the war, which is a blatant lie. So the gray zone, this is as well what or where the angry but submissive protagonist of the film we have just seen belong to. Oh, this is okay. I finished.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Brassat, for this this important talk. I will let myself to be one moment longer, and this concept that you mentioned, and that it's connected to this particular story, which is connected to war in Bosnia, the specific sites of the war, specific ethnic groups that were in a war, and you mentioned what is really important for me, that this film sends the universal message. It's really important that film managed to go that kind of path from the particular specific story to the universal story. If we watch this film without the knowledge on the events and the parts that were involved in that kind of conflict and war, we will face with different narratives actually in ex-Yugoslavia, and we still cannot agree upon what was going concrete related also with this historic events that your film actually adapt to the story some kind of way. So in a former Yugoslavia, those ethno-nationalist narratives actually led to the war, but today also they are shaping our lives, and we are basically depend on them. So I appreciate so much your approach to this topic and your courage to make the film as it is, not just a particular story, but with so much importance in a universal level that people who are not in this background, who do not have knowledge, can understand what is film is about. So, but this leads me, of course, to this sense of universality, which is really important as an artistic challenge. So I would like to ask Nebojša, of course, of course, you mentioned it in first when we talk when your first answer to the first questions, you mentioned ethics. So could you please share your reflection of those ethics, and how do you think that was helping you to create first this scenario, and then of course film?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you to Professor Brassat for very thorough and analysis. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed listening to it. And well, there is not much more to say about ethics that I already said. For me, first question for any author must be, why am I doing this film, and what gives me the right to make this film, and what is my position in doing this film? And in our complex reality of post-Yugoslav countries, it's very important question when me as a Croat I was making a film that takes place in Bosnia, and where Serbs are oppressors and Muslims are the victims, which puts me in a position that maybe is not that is questionable, because there are many situations during war in Yugoslavia where Croats were oppressors and Serbs were victims or Muslims were victims. And why would I, as a Croat, choose a story where the Serb is oppressor? And especially when we see that very often in our countries, film was used and is still used as a propaganda tool, where you make films highlighting others' crimes just for political reasons, just to portray your nation as the biggest victim of the war, and to blame the other nation as the biggest boogeyman of the Yugoslavia. And the answer I gave to myself and why I thought that I have the right to make this film are several things. First, I did see something very universal in this story, something that we can identify today in 2025 or 24, when this film was made, as individuals and as societies in whole. And although I wrote the script before the war in Ukraine started, and before all this happening right now in Palestine took place, there was already, you could find a lot of, as you said, so many war conflicts which are not close to Croatia, but where we can ask ourselves, do we have to do something? Which is the big question of today, and what is our position in these other conflicts? So this is the first reason why I thought that we have the right as Croats to make this story, because it is something universal. Second reason is still we see in this strain Christians oppressing Muslims. And as we know, in Bosnia, Croats at one point started religious war against Muslims, which in a way, and even in some parts, they fought or they at least had some sort of deal with Serbian nationalists and Chetniks against the Muslims, which makes us in a way collaborators of the crime against the Muslim population of Bosnia, and which made Croats also guilty for the situation where Bosnia is today, 20 or 30 years after the war, as one place which is constantly on a brink of disappearing or of a new war, or is completely as a state unoperational. So these were the answers I gave myself, and then also there is the question of representation, how to represent different characters, and I did something that we casted against the nation. So Tomo Buzov, who was in real life was a Croat, he was played by Serbian actor, great Serbian actor Dragan Mićanović, and our protagonist Dragan was played by Croatian actor Goran Bogdan, and the Serbian Chetnik, oppressor who comes to their compartment, was played by the French actor of Croatian origins. So in a way, we mixed it all up, so that we don't that it can be watched also as, when it comes to ethnicity, as a big melting pot, within this trend.
Okay, thank you, Nebojša. That's it's really amazing to have that kind of a reflection on your basically artistic ethics, and of course, you give us the example how that ethics actually functioning in creation in the creating of this film, The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. So, Katarina, with the respect of this atmosphere that we just touched a little bit, Nebojša and me, of course, and Professor Basat is really well known with the history of the wars in Yugoslavia. I would like to ask some question that it's basically rooted in a question of the reception. So I assume that you facing, I mean, you with the film and all crew, we are facing with different kind of reception, of course, in ex-Yugoslavian countries, especially Serbia, Bosnia, and Croatia, which were involved in this story and in this filmmaking story. And of course, what about international reception? Can you just give us some comparison or some examples? Thank you.
Well, when we talk about international film festivals and international screenings, the first proof to us that the film is understandable was in Cannes, and then later on all the other international film festivals outside Europe, where people really don't have almost any knowledge about the war and about the background of the characters of the film. Which proves this universality of the film and that it works. I'm talking basically now about people in USA and about in Western European countries, people who are not who didn't even watch the film because they were even interested in the war and the sides, but were interested in a film as a piece of art. And when we talk about our countries, luckily, also in Serbia, there are a variety of film festivals, and in the whole region, there is a variety of film festivals, some bigger, some smaller, but film festivals that tend to show also films like this and tend to show films that bring wider eyes on the topic. So our screening in Slobodna Zona in Belgrade in Serbia was wonderful. It was a huge screening and it was completely full. Nebojša was there to present the film, and I mean, Nebojša can speak about it because he was there personally. But it was a full house with a great reception, with a great applause, which means that, as we said already, it's only 30 years ago, but it is time probably to start to speak about these topics, at least in this universal way, to analyze the people, not the nations, but the people and the personalities within small stories. So when we talk about reception in general of this film, I think it's wonderful, and it's really interesting to hear different perspectives and different details that people understand and bring to themselves from this really short film, but everybody find some detail or some small piece or some small point at least in Goran's face and his mimics, and people generally understand what he as a character had to bear out from this act that he didn't do and how difficult it was to him as a character.
Yeah, of course. And again, additionally, I would like to ask you, you are the right person for my next question. It's related also with the distribution of the films and reception, of course, with the viewers, but also I want to underline the fact that the man who the film was recognized with distinguished awards, including Palme d'Or, from Cannes Film Festival or European Film Award, that is like European Oscars, César Award, and of course you were shortlisted to Oscar Academy Award. What are the implications of that kind of awards to the film, and what are implications of that kind of award, and what is that related, or do have any kind of relation to the next life of the film and the future of the film?
Well, just a small correction. The film was nominated for Oscars, so it was it brought it was also it was the last step. It didn't win, but it was nominated. And when I look back to it now, and when I see the numbers, it's great because film got theatrical distribution in America with all the other nominated short films. It was screened in, I think, more than 130 film festivals so far around the globe. And I could say that this number is still rising. So festivals are still requesting the film. It was screened on Arte in Europe, also online. It will be screened on several TV stations. So I think it's the widest possible option for a short film distribution you can achieve today, because short films there are only few countries that do screen theatrically short films, only few television broadcasters that screen short films as standalones. So it's really not easy to get to these very few slots. Thanks to these awards, thanks to the wonderful film, first of all, but also to the awards, we managed to enter all those slots, which brings more and more audience to the film. Which is the goal. This is why we do films, of course.
Of course. Okay, thank you. That is really important to know how the filmmakers are really relaying and having a reference on the awards that they are getting, and how that is important to the next to the future of the film, actually, because I think right now, when everything it's basically done with the film will actually have opportunity to have another life, which will be I think really amazing. So let me get back to you, Professor Brossa, because I have one question for you more before we start to include other participants in discussion. So in light of your recently delivered talk on the film, I would like to take this opportunity to inquire about certain points that I have been raised during your presentation and the other idea that I have get to that. So can we just underline that thing that we are starting to talk about, ethical engagement of the artist, ethical engagement of the art, and also ethical response of the viewers, of course, to the film, which is capable to produce different kind of emotions, states, and thoughts in the viewers. But also, I would like to ask you: shall we discuss widely on the social role of the art, or should we consider that it's to be merely personal relationship with the film, or we should just basically talk on the level of the viewer who watch the films and have some kind of emotions on the film, or we should do as we are doing in a field of film research or art research, literature research, that we are actually intending to discuss in this important question, which is social role of the art. Can I ask you for the comment of that?
Yeah. What I'm basically interested in is, let's say, the philosophical reach of the film, the philosophy being my racket. So, and I would, if I had to sum up on this issue, I would say that the film is raising the right question, which is let's say, can we expect extraordinary deeds from the ordinary man, as the ordinary man has to face extraordinary conditions? So that would be the question, which, as we know, let's say, taking into consideration our present and the many tests and ordeals we have to face, it's a key issue for me. What about the ordinary man in this having to face these extraordinary conditions, which are everywhere? I mean, in our presence, and of course, what I constantly have in mind here is Gaza. What is epoch-making today is Gaza. And it's not a matter of distance. I mean, each of us has to face Gaza, as Gaza is epoch-making, and we are ordinary people. So what can we do? What are our abilities, capacities facing Gaza in the present? So that would be one thing. Another thing which I would like to say briefly is what I find quite relevant in the film. It's something about, let's say, ordinary perpetrators. You know, the question of ordinary perpetrators is at the core of the understanding of genocide in general. What I find quite relevant in the film is the fact that the ordinary perpetrators in it just look like normal, regular soldiers. They wear uniforms, they obey orders. So when you see these sequences, you suddenly understand why the ordinary man is prone to obey the perpetrator, because the perpetrator looks like, let's say, the legitimate embodiment of law and order. But he's a thug. I mean, he's a killer. He's a killer, but he looks like a normal, ordinary, regular military man, soldier. And of course, this is one of the keys of the submissiveness, obedience of the ordinary man, who is boiling with anger. But what he has to face is a guy with a uniform and looking like, let's say, a normal, a professional soldier. But he's a killer. Actually, the guy he's facing, who is asking about St. George, etc., is just a killer. But the killer looks good. Not good, not exactly good, but normal. He looks normal. Yeah, this is one of the key issues, I think, that kind of situation.
Okay, thank you, Professor Broussard. I will have just one final comment before I introduce our participants and ask them to give us the comments, ideas, or thoughts, maybe some questions for especially for Nebojša and Katarina, but also for the rest of us. Every time when I'm thinking about the arts and artistical representation of the wars, I always find to ask myself, especially when you have, like, for example, that is most visible in a field of documentary film, the brutal sometimes the brutal representation of the war and of the victim and the blood and confrontation and the price that life has is low. But on other side, I want to mention how is this really important to have this kind of films that actually give us the hint, give us the story of the war, and they are not even using the weapon, but we are still understanding what it's about. It's nothing. It's not new idea. It's not something new. I always using Susan Sontag when I'm trying to rethink on this kind of things. Her famous book dedicated to actually war photography, but it's actually on the pain of the others, on representation of the pain of other people. So in war photography, but also that book is really important for me. I always have in mind that kind of sentences, and regard the things that you said, Professor Bassat, the things that are happening right now in Gaza, in Palestine, in Ukraine, and these 110 words that I actually mentioned, and I continuously talk on them. It's a really sad atmosphere when you are thinking about how you want to make the impact. And what is the impact of the arts, which is great impact actually when you create some film like this film in question, because as Susan Sontag stated, like it's the most important description of the reaction of the people to war. We can always switch the channel when it's one kind of the news of, or we can scroll down on our Facebook or Instagram or other portals that we are using. So it's really important that ethical engagement in human level, but also in artistical level, and the artistical art of it's a pleonasm right now, but it's really good to show that kind of story without one bullet or without a drop of the blood. So right now I would ask our participants to include to this discussion, and we are welcoming all your questions, thoughts, idea, comments. Professor Liu, please.
I really appreciate and very much touched by this short film. I think the most impressive experience is the control of the moments of tension. As Marima mentioned, there's no bloody scene or direct brutality, but there's suspense. The suspense of this violence that can erupt any moment. Okay, so the whole process, there's no strong dramatic reaction, no brutal scene, but there's suspense and the fear and the anxiety of the violence that might take place the next minute. That is throughout this film. And the other thing is that there's obvious lawlessness. There's no law. Who are those people? The army? Are they the government? And also the right for them to do this check. Okay, this check seems to like demanding for this not only their documents, but also their correct answer, like a secret code or password. If you answer the wrong thing, then you expose yourself. You might be one of the Muslim, and they can take you away. And so, but this kind of irrational random check, okay, can happen in any place, not only in Europe or during this Bosnia worrying situation or the aftermath of this social unrest that also happened in Asia. We can see or easily envision these situations. For example, in Xinjiang for the Uyghur people and the Tibetan stateless people, maybe in Nepal, or the Rohingya refugee in when they are in the place that they are not supposed to be, and they can be arrested any moment. And also people in Hong Kong too, people disappear, or in China, of course. So, for example, the Uyghur people, all their children are brought away and experiencing education in different provinces. Okay, their parents just lost their children because they are going to be re-educated, and when they come back home, they cannot converse, they cannot communicate, they just lost them. Okay, so so this film, this short film, 15 minutes, is so powerful because it addresses the similar insecurity in the condition when the ruler or the army can execute their violence in their daily life and to anyone. They are so vulnerable, they can be taken away. So those are the very strong message and powerful experience for me. And the other thing is we also see different reactions. Of course, the protagonist is very the most the audience will follow him, but also will go through self-questioning, right? Or would I do the same thing? Would I be able to say anything? So it is a very direct confrontation with the audience itself. But we also see the old person, the elder person's reaction, and the teenagers, the girls' reaction very and different, I think. So they are different bystanders. They are onlookers, but the old person seems to know what could happen to them if they make any wrong gesture, action, and so on. So yeah, those are those moments or elements that I feel very strongly, and I also feel similar situations. Maybe Muslim in India too, okay, or Muslim some many minority groups in China. They might face this violence, daily violence, and under check, under threat, and the fear and terror that they cannot resist. So thank you so much for making this film. Yeah.
Maybe okay, Professor Liu, thank you for this observation. It's really important that you draw a comparison, or kind of, I cannot say comparison, parallel, but in real it is with the experience of the people who are in treatment in Asia. I assume that in every corner of the world, as in every continent, there is some kind of armed conflicts and treat of violence, and so it's really important to hear this kind of reception on this particular story. I think that also for director and for producer, it's really nice to know that kind of parallels between people who can identify with this story. I think that the main point is to feel identified with certain characters in a film, either way, with the character of the Toma or with the protagonist, as a Professor Brassat accented really good with the protagonist, and of course that atmosphere that I stated in the beginning of introduction of this session, which is really captivating. You feel the protagonist's shame and his in his action, in his face, in his eyes, in his cigarette also. So, and you are basically in a state that you feel the same, and that you are and you are in position that you are thinking what somebody outside of you, in front of you, are thinking about you because you do this or that. So it's really important. Okay, I would like to ask if Professor Chu maybe it's still with us or no. Okay, I'm not sure because this. Okay, so maybe some of the participants has a question for Nebojša or Katarina. No.
Do you have any?
Maybe yeah. Our
will it be audible? Will it be audible to the guests?
okay, it's
No, like what I say will be audible to them. They can hear me.
yes, of course, everything. It's okay. Just speak. Oh yeah, or maybe
if you want to sit over here.
yeah, or
closer, so they can also
okay.
see
Yeah.
you. If you sit here.
So my question is, the plight of Yugoslavians was mentioned this morning. So, but I don't see the plight of Africans who are really suffering, because one of my batchmates is from Ethiopia. So he was saying like his country has been in turmoil for several decades, and many of the countries in Africa are still in that situation. And the real reason I would say would be the Western countries, because France obviously has interests in Africa, and many countries have. So, how do you bring the plight of African nations to the fore, to the front? Yeah.
Okay. For which speakers is this question addressed?
Professor Brassat.
Professor Brassat. Okay, Professor. Professor Brassat.
Yes.
The question is addressed to you.
Yes, but I don't know what to answer. I didn't
Okay.
really get the point. So I mean the connection with the film, with the context of the film. So I could only give a very general answer, which is that we also are concerned with that kind of event, which happens more than frequently on the African continent too. But yes, I'm aware of the fact that it's a very plain and average answer. But I'm sorry, I didn't really get the point of the question.
Okay, maybe you want to explain yourself and to give a explanation to Professor. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, the main point is bringing the stories to the front, right? So, because Blood Diamond was one of them. It's a famous movie. But we don't see the stories of these people, like Africans, a lot, because we don't see it at all. But they are the suffering people. For batteries, even children are mining cobalt in DRC. So, So we must bring these stories to the front, right? So that's our responsibility too. Because my friend was saying he has been in Taiwan for 3 years. He hasn't gone back to his country in 3 years. So I don't think his country is in good conditions. But they have all the resources that the world needs. But still, for hundreds of years, they are suffering. Why is it? Like, we must bring those stories to the front also, right? It's our responsibility too. So you are doing any project on that or something? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Professor?
Yes, I agree. If we take this issue from the angle of movie making, it's quite shocking to see how few films shot made by African directors, filmmakers are available in, let's say, the white global north. This is true. There is such a lack of balance, I would say, between the abundance of films shot in Europe or in the US, which deal with our condition as a global white middle class, and the so few films coming from Africa, and because of I imagine, the absence of local means of production of films. So the few African films coming from shot by directors living in former French colonies, what I immediately notice is that the production has to be European. If not, these films would not exist. And yes, it's a scandal, it's shocking. And on that issue, I can only agree with what has been said. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prasad. Maybe we have another question or comment, or I should ask Nebojša and Katarina also for their reflection and on this discussion and talk, and maybe they do have some comment or to conclude. So we are running out of time soon, so it's really important to hear the both of you with your thoughts. Nebojša?
Well, for this specific question, for me, I cannot comment much because I come from a very small country, a very small cinematography, and I think for our cinematography it's very important to make very local films that deal with local problems. So I try to make films that deal with Croatian or ex-Yugoslav reality and problems, and that's my limits, and I'm fully aware how hard it is in small countries, and especially as Croatia, and I can only imagine how is it in African countries, how difficult it is to produce films and to even finance them, let alone distribute them international. But in Europe, we are still blessed by and being members of European Union, as Croatia is, so which helps us a little bit. Still, what I think is very important to first and foremost, if you come from a small country, to make films for your local audience about your local problems, because these are the films that nobody else will make for you. And for me, this is like the first goal, to make to communicate within my community, and to open the dialogue within my community and with the nearest neighbors, which means with this film, producers Katarina said that their goal was to go to Cannes. My goal was to go to Sarajevo. I was that's the place where I envisioned this film, and this first and foremost, and then second to go to Belgrade. And for me, the great success of this film, maybe the greatest success of this film, maybe even bigger than being nominated for Oscar or for winning Palme d'Or, was the fact that we have shown this film in Belgrade. So Croatian production, Croatian director, making the film about Serbian war crime and showing it in the Belgrade in front of 3,000 people and getting ovations. I think this is the huge step for relationships, even for this small part. 3,000 people is not a lot, but for a cinema it's a lot. And I cannot, I don't think this happened before since the break of Yugoslavia. And I still think that it's very hard for Serbian film, for example, that talks about Croatian crime to come to Zagreb and have such response from the audience. But this is the first step, I think.
Okay. Thank you that you are mentioning that because earlier Katarina was mentioned that you were in Belgrade. Yeah, it's always important regard everything that we do to regard our professions, or we are artists or researchers, always do to find the topics that will be close to us, that will be our story, basically, that we can share, because it's really important to have the knowledge, to have experience, because sometimes the knowledge is not enough to create artistic piece or scientific piece. It's never mind, but it's always based on experience and the power of correlation, what we can relate to and what we can identify to. So and I understand your choice completely to get involved with the stories that are connected to ex-Yugoslavian communities and their history and philosophy of life, actually. So but regard these stories mentioned just with the continent of Africa, it's really hard and to get to understand. Of course that they are having stories, important stories, of course that they are having artists. It's always important to underline that kind of thing, to point out they have stories, they have artists, and of course we can just imagine in what kind of social position they are in their strength, in their without any support to create and to make films, of course, to communicate on global level, because we are right now talking about global communication, about the Western communication, which is pretty much Euro and America centralized. But regard the topic of the wars, of course, right now you have some kind of conflict that it's Congo, it's related, but also in different kind of ethnic small conflicts in Africa. But always when I'm mentioning why that we can find different resources on the war and different many stories from personal perspective. Every of us has one story that can be shared and are artistically adapted and prepared. So, but yeah, in the last 30 years, I always, that is other things that I'm stating. In last 30 years, we had 1994 genocide in Rwanda, actually, and 1995 in Srebrenica, which was two big genocides after the Second World War. And of course, right now in Palestine, we will see what will be with the War Tribunal, of course. And there are such of important response of every of us to have conscious, to rise conscious. And I think that this kind of film are really important because they are rising the conscience about those kind of things, about human response, about human solidarity, but also in this case about human vulnerability, what to do, what should I do in that kind of challenging situation. So of course, Katarina, please, if you had a conclusion or if you have something to share with us, maybe you're better known with this kind of situation in a production world or film industry. But of course, you cannot you can always give us maybe some other observation that it was important to you, but you didn't have time to share it with us. So feel free to say.
Well, I would just like to reflect on this African situation because I know just a bit, but I also see an opportunity there as well. Of course, the production landscape in Africa is very difficult, and I know that in some countries it is not possible to make films at all. But when I hear Nebojša and his thought and his original thrift to make films originally for his local audience, because it's the first natural author wish, which I completely understand. If you cannot do that, you can also try to speak to investors abroad, because I saw several films shot in Africa about characters from Africa that were financed from Europe and were very, very successful. Because there are countries that do have money and that could be interested in that. And those films traveled a lot. Village Next to Paradise is one of them. It's an Austrian film, for example. It is not about the war, but it is completely about African social environment and African people. So it is possible, but then again, I'm coming back to the idea and the project itself, and it's the core job of a director, writer, and producer to pitch project internationally, which is also not easy from a author from Africa, I can imagine, but it is not impossible. And I think there is an opportunity and there is space for those kind of projects. That's my feeling from watching what kind of films are winning the festivals, are screened on the festivals, and are liked by the audience. Because even though we are a global village and we are very well connected, there are still cultures that to Europeans and Western part of the world are, maybe it's a wrong word, but are exotic and distant enough so that they want to learn about them. And the social environment is completely different. And then the stories and the character path through some kind of story is completely different and very, very interesting to observe for an audience. So I would encourage your colleague and your friend, or if I understood well, to write a story, to write a pitch, to write whatever kind of a piece of story, and to try to sell it, not sell it for money, but to try to pitch it and to make some kind of to start the journey to make a film or a TV series or whatever, which kind of audiovisual form. Yes, I mean, everything else was said, I believe, so far. And thank you, Merima, so much for guiding us through this discussion and for pointing out the important parts of the filmmaking and the story in a global environment.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Katarina, for you were the person who were my first contact to this opportunity to screen this film here in this small but important audience. Yeah, we are running out of the time, so I just have like a couple minutes long to say thank you, of course, to you and for and Nebojša also, not just for the participation, which is really important to have you here and to discuss with you on these important topics. Of course, we can discuss also how we can use the arts in our classroom, in our research projects, how to interpret and analyze the arts. But for now, this was the most important things to highlight maybe opportunity for this kind of discussion. And also, Professor Brossat, thank you for the time and your insights were really important. You connected the philosophy and the poetics of the film and filmmaking, of course, and your inspiration analysis were really, really nice. And thank you, Professor Liu, to be here to watch the movie and to have amazing comment to connect European experience and Asian. And of course, we had, of course, an experience of the, so to say, from Africa. It was really nice to me to be an opportunity to be in Taiwan, of course, to learn and study, to research, and after all to bring you here with me. This was really a nice and amazing experience. Thank you both for being the part of this discussion.
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marima. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.